Pratibha Patil has spoken about things even as an experienced political journalist. I didn't know. Her daughter was present during the interview, and she said that I do remember my father bringing us to Mumbai, and in without reservation, they had spread newspapers on the floor of the train, and he got both the son and the daughter. Corporates do make an effort to have gender diversity in leadership roles, but in other more traditional places, I don't think in more traditional professions, I don't think there is any effort.
How you went about, choosing or finalizing these 17 exceptional women?
Feel that so she the leader was a book that I think was waiting to be written. If not me, somebody else. People ask me that Uma Bharti has been chief minister from the BJP. Why did you not choose her and chose Sushma Swaraj? In fact, it was a challenge, and her family, till the book was written, had not come out and spoken to any journalist, anyone. My publisher came to me, and the editor said that there is no Indira Gandhi.
Welcome to the Dialogues. We are here with a brand new episode of Books and Banter, where we have interesting conversations with authors, writers, and thought influencers. Today we have with us Ms. Nidhi Sharma. She is the author of She the Leader, Women in Indian Politics. Nidhi has been a journalist, author, and a political analyst for 27 years, and she extensively writes for The Pioneer, Times of India, and Asian Age. She is currently associated with the Political Bureau of the Economic Times. She's had a prolific journey in writing the book, and we are going to talk to her as to how she went about it. Welcome to the show, Nidhi.
Thank you, Portia.
So, to start with, we would really want to know how did you begin this journey and how your personal life has influenced this journey of writing politically.
So it was really a natural progression to political writing. I started off as a city reporter with the Asian Age, and I was always interested in politics. In college, I majored in politics, political science, and it was always my dream to become a political journalist. And so that was how I started with city reporting. Then I was covering Delhi government in Delhi as well as Delhi politics. So that's how it was, just a natural progression following what I have always been interested in.
What would be some of your experiences that shaped your interest in women in leadership?
So always, your personal experiences as a reporter uh, always shape your political outlook as well, and how you cover issues. Whenever, like, right from the beginning, probably as a child, the activities that I was involved in, usually I would always be the only girl around. Like, I took up karate as a child. I think in class 8, I was the only girl in a class of boys.
Wow.
And no, it's just how you feel, and you don't feel singled out. I think I was raised by a father who always, who never, there was never a gender a question in our household. I have a brother and a sister, older siblings, and gender was never an issue. There was never that, we don't realize it when we bring up our children, but it is always a gendered approach. uh, I have a boy and a girl right now, and my entire effort is, because you live in an ecosystem. My entire effort is to have an ungendered approach, if you can say. But in our times when we were growing up, you know, to have an ungendered kind of an approach in upbringing a child is quite rare. But in how my parents saw it, it was just very natural. It just came naturally to you. Now, when I look back, even how when I started off in as a journalist, I remember initially in the crime reporting days. Uh, at that particular time, I'm sure there were crime reporters earlier as well. I was the only girl covering crime at that precise time, and then people, newspapers did put women on the crime beat. I remember I used to cover jails as well. The R jail used to be a beat for me. Again, no, at that precise time, there wasn't. There weren't women who were covering it, going inside the jail and covering their lives as well. Though it's all very, in a very tight approach, the government and the jail authorities don't really open up too much. But in whatever format we could cover, I was again. So that does shape you as a person. And gradually, when I did get into political writing, I just felt that, women in leadership roles, we don't see them enough there. I'm not talking about just politics. I'm also talking about, how women in newsrooms are. You don't see enough women editors. If I were to ask you at present, how many women are leading newsrooms right now in papers, newspapers? If you see, we just have, I think, Jyoti Malhotra alone heading the Tribune, and I think she was the first woman to head Tribune, and that was national news too.
Correct.
So it's just that's how even in a so-called progressive profession like journalism, if you don't have enough women leading in leadership roles, even as vertical heads, or are we training them enough to take up these roles from so we have gender parity. Corporates do make an effort to have gender diversity in leadership roles, but in other more traditional places, I don't think in more traditional professions, I don't think there is any effort. And even in the corporate world, if you
Mhm.
see this gender diversity, we hear of gender diversity only over the last 5 years, isn't it? So imagine, like, I started in journalism, like almost, not exactly, but 2.5 decades back. So obviously we didn't have
Pretty
enough.
much the last century.
Yeah.
So, I mean, personally, I completely connect with when you spoke about how you've been brought up. I've been brought up in a similar environment. I'm happy to hear that, you've also come up in a similar situation and our thinking is on the same lines. Focusing on your book now, I think it'll be very interesting to know that at what point or how you felt that there was a, or if at all you felt rather, there was a gap in the literature on Indian politics, which led you to write this particular book. And if you could also highlight how you went about, choosing or finalizing these 17 exceptional women.
So see, I feel that so she, the leader, was a book that I think was waiting to be written. If not me, somebody else. We don't have enough people writing about women leaders. So after I had written the book, I was talking, I do get invited for lectures in schools and colleges. So in educational institutions, I often begin by saying that, whenever somebody asks me why this book, I always ask them, name five women politicians who participated in the Indian freedom struggle. And people start with Sarojini Naidu, say Indira Gandhi, and then they start thinking, right? So that just goes to show, even in the way uh, our politics is covered, again, that gendered approach. That there
The
is not
textbooks.
exactly even our textbooks. They don't talk about. So right now, in when you talk about women politicians, even when I travel to schools, like that is a different discussion completely. That people don't want to talk about politics. We see the Gen Z, Gen Y, they don't, they're not interested in politics. That's going to be soon problem because they are going to vote in the elections. And how many of them vote, I don't know. So, again, getting back to the book, I always thought that there's not enough literature about women in politics. We talk about women's reservation, we talk about women's reservation in the local bodies, but somehow we do not have enough literature about who are the women who have shaped modern Indian politics, right? Their journeys. Um, that is how I thought of the book, that there is a gap between what has been written so far and what could that be. So that is how the book came about.
And how did you decide the 17 leaders?
Yeah, so my book, She the Leader, profiles 17 Indian women politicians. I'll be very honest. So I was very certain that there should be, uh, it should be a neutral book, not eulogizing people, not really praising a party. I wanted to capture not just their politics, but what are they as people? What do they believe in? Right now, if you see, we are flooded with information, right? Um, there's so much to read. Sometimes I pick up the paper and I'm like, there is so much to read. But at the same time, we do not know what these women are in their personal lives. They have their, interests, they have their pet peeves. What is it? What are they all about? Even as journalists, when we cover them, we cover their politics. Not many have the time to delve into their personal lives or their beliefs. What kind of people are they? How difficult was it for them to make it into the world of politics? So, one thought was to have regional representation, like all of them, Northeast, West, South, like that.
Pan India.
Yeah. And I was very, very certain that um, I needed somebody from the Northeast as well. So, and also I was very certain that all parties need to be. Then the next thing came was whether I should cover, how should you cover, right? There are people in the Rajya Sabha as well right now. You have Sudha Murthy there, right? So there are people from diverse backgrounds in politics.
Great.
So when I'm talking about she the leader in the title itself, my thought process comes because I would look at them um, as people's representatives. So the cut that I had was that one of the major factors was uh, they need to have won elections, popular elections, right? So the only, I think, the exception that I have made here is Brinda Karat, who was a Rajya Sabha MP. Now, her body of work, now she is a people's leader. If you see how she has been involved in all the people's movements. So there I made an exception. And the rest, I think I did so for, yeah, for her. All of them have won popular elections. Now, it was very difficult to choose some and leave out the others. Like, people ask me that Uma Bharti has been chief minister from the BJP. Why did you not choose her and chose Sushma Swaraj? Now, if you really see, we know Sushma Swaraj as as a leader, but we don't know enough about her
Right.
personally, right? So, also, in fact, it was a challenge, and her family, till the book was written, had not come out and spoken to any journalist, anyone. In fact, it was difficult. Basuri Swaraj, her daughter, wasn't in public life at that time.
Great.
And it was difficult to get her on board for that book. When I approached her, she was very categoric that she'll not come on. She said it's too personal a memory. My mother, her politics, her personal, everything is very personal. So, and she said, I've never trusted anyone. But somehow we spoke, and she was kind enough to open up to me. And again, my book for the book, I have always assured the leaders that, I'm not here that you think that, journalists are really unpopular for doing hit jobs. So I said, I'm not here to give anybody a hard
Hard time.
time. And I genuinely want to tell the stories. And I think after I had spoken to her, she got the confidence, though she was meeting me for the first time. So she said, "You're right, let's see if we want to." But somehow she did get the confidence. And that's how we began. And the same thing happened with Pratibha Patil. See, Pratibha Patil was a learning experience for me as well, because her election 2007 in as president was my first presidential election that I covered.
Mm.
And I was inexperienced. And when I looked at her from the point of view of what the opposition was doing, was telling us the narrative that the opposition was setting. And now when I look back, and then I approached her, somehow I just felt that we had not given her enough, I guess, opportunity to speak about herself. So that's how it all started. And I wrote to her, and her interview was an eye opener for me, because I just felt that the way she was, she opened up, and again she had read the email, again an eye opener. She'd read the email, and she said, I opened up to you because of your seventh question. And I hadn't read my email before I went to interview her. So she said that, you said that has to be brought out. Your point of view needs to be brought out. What she felt when the opposition went after her, it was a bitterly fought presidential election. We haven't seen, I mean, obviously there have been contests after that, but the way it was, I think we as reporters even went down to whose plane was she using to campaign, to travel to other places. We would, be at Palam Airport to note down the uh, probably the tail number and everything.
Model of the film.
It was a very bitterly fought election, and she was the first woman president.
That's right.
So when I got her in for the book, it was an achievement for me. And she was, and these leaders, all of them opened their homes, their hearts to me right after COVID. COVID was still not over, so many of them interacted with me with their masks on. And I think 2022 was when it was fag end of COVID, third wave was just ending, and the third, the fourth wave, 22. And they were all interacting with me end of 21 and 2022, when we were still skeptical about traveling, but all of them opened up and helped in giving this very well-rounded perspective, I would say. So yeah, that's how these 17 women were chosen. Yes, there was one thing that, if if authors would want to, budding authors would want to see and learn from my experience. When I started off, I drew up a list of 15 women.
Right.
And there was no, so this book has 4 sections. The
That's
first,
true.
it begins with the section called the pioneers.
Two leaders.
Two leaders, Indira Gandhi and
Sucheta
Sucheta Kriplani. Now, that section wasn't there. I drew up a list, I wrote, so my publisher came to me, and, the editor said that there is no Indira Gandhi. So I said, see, I have never covered her. There have been so many books that have been written about her. I don't know what new would I add. So there was a little bit of to and fro on that, and I stuck to my ground, because, see, unlike what people would want to believe, a book is what you make it to be,
That's true.
right? There's so much that has been written about several women that have been covered, but it's the unique aspect of what you as a journalist have covered them in close quarters and what you bring to the table. That's exactly why the book is written. Now, they said, okay, fine, so go for it. So I wrote the entire book, and I submitted it. And my editor came back, and she said, the first thing, so my publisher is Aleph Book Company, which is an imprint of Rupa,
Okay.
and David Davidar is the person behind it. And my editor said, Ein Lao Zukum, she said that, the first thing that David Davidar said was, "Where is Indira Gandhi?" So um, now, where is Indira Gandhi is a very big question. So again, I repeated what I had said,
Mm.
and he said that, see, when I come to a book, I come to it in totality. I want this to be,
One stop shop
yeah, absolutely,
of the topic.
off the topic. So where is Indira Gandhi? See, there is no women in Indian politics. If in Indian politics she's the big boss. So in fact that is his
Quote
phrase. Yeah.
unquote, yeah.
So he says, where is the big boss of Indian politics? So that's how. So I went back and I spent a good 3 to 4 months because I didn't want it to be just another Indira Gandhi profile. So I researched a lot. So these are Sucheta Kriplani as well. I researched a lot. I went to the Prime Minister Memorial Library. It's called Prime Minister's Museum
Nehru
and
Museum,
Library.
yeah.
Yeah. So I went to it. I looked at the personal papers of Sucheta Kriplani, and um, the letters she wrote. All the leaders. Right. Um, then there was a biography as well, and so not many people. In fact, there was just one copy of the biography in the library, and it's in tatters. I hope they digitalize it, and
It.
that's out. Yeah. So, but yes, a good 4 to 5 months were spent in researching just these two, and it was a learning experience. Sujata Kriplani was a learning experience
I can
for me.
imagine.
Not much has been written in
I
popular.
don't think the youngsters would have even heard her name
Yeah, yeah,
in today's time,
and she was,
unfortunately.
yeah, and she was the first woman chief minister of Uttar Pradesh.
That's right. So, I mean, thank you for that detailed answer. Having read the book and from a reader's perspective, uh, the book means so much different when you hear the guiding criteria from the author, and that's exactly what Books and Banter is about. We would want to hear from the author what they felt about it and how
Yeah.
they approached it. Coming to approach, if you can just quickly tell us, I mean, I don't want to use the word favorite, but which chapter touched you and impacted you the most as the author?
Yeah, so no, we do have favorites.
Okay.
So we do have favorites, but yes, touched me the most was again Pratibha Patil and Sushma Swaraj. See, as a journalist, you're trained to enjoy the journey as well.
Correct.
It's not just the end product. In fact, you get trained to move on from a story, and this is when an outsider sees this attitude, they just don't understand that how the very next day when the story is published in the paper, when the article is out, how come it does not give you a kick, right?
Hmm.
I don't think all of us, none of us must be looking at it. Cub reporters might be looking at these things, but we don't look at them. We like, okay, so we just move on to the next story. um,
It's so much on, daily basis, and you move to the next that you don't
yeah.
even have the time probably to read your own published work. You've
Yes.
done your bit, you've covered it, you've given
Yeah,
the,
you know what it is.
and and it's moved on.
So that's what. So the journey, you trained to enjoy the journey,
Right.
right? So again, so the thrill is in really the chase, and when you finally get the sense of achievement that a leader is opening up. Pratibha Patil has spoken about things even as an experienced political journalist. I didn't know.
Hmm.
And even in the national arena, you wouldn't have enough journalists who would have known. Like she spoke about how she could have been the first woman Maharashtra chief minister, and how she missed the bus, how she was promised, and she told her husband to get the children, and they did not have reservation. Her daughter was present during the interview, and she said that I do remember my father bringing us to Mumbai, and in without reservation, they had spread newspapers on the floor of the train, and he got both the son and the daughter to because they thought that she would be sworn in the very next day.
Wow.
And yeah, so see, it is that is one of my favorite chapters. And obviously Sushma Swaraj, again, the way the family opened up, the daughter opened up, and after guarding the memories so closely,
Hmm.
it is a big deal when someone trusts you with their impression about their parents. So, yes, Sheila Dikshit again is a very, very dear profile to me. Also, because I covered her as a cub reporter, and I knew her very well because she was the chief minister of, she was a three-term chief minister. I covered two terms very closely, and in fact, my all my entire time as a city reporter
Hmm.
was with Sheila Dikshit being the chief minister of Delhi. So yes, that is another very, very favorite profile of
I'm
mine.
kind of enjoying that your favorites kind of outline on the researchers, which has been difficult. I think
Yeah.
you've enjoyed the challenges as an author while writing this book. That's wonderful. Uh, Touching upon challenges, if you could just quickly tell us, uh, how did you approach the different leaders when some of them were, let's say, with us and some of them posthumously? How was that challenge tackled by you?
Approach them as in
Approach
the subject.
the subject, or the person that you were writing. Some were alive, some weren't. So how were different were your research methodology?
See, I had so how different was my research methodology? Um, See, when the person is there with us, usually you when you've been around as a political journalist, you have a rapport or they know of you,
Right.
right? So that is not that difficult.
Were there
Uh,
any chapters, you sorry for interrupting, who was alive but you couldn't speak one on one?
yes, yes. And some of them I wouldn't name came on board, but they are off record
Okay, I
because of
understand.
their political
Sure.
sensitivities. So that is how it has been. A research methodology, like people I hadn't covered, Sucheta Kriplani and um, Indira Gandhi, was to read a lot, go to the library, do it the traditional way that how research is done.
Mm-hmm.
Go to the library, look for original letters to know the mind of the reader, the leader, and that's like actually going back to your textbooks.
Hmm.
So that's how I feel that you don't realize it, but you take to it like fish to water
Right.
because that's how you've grown as a journalist, and you know it's like going back to school. You just know it's like muscle
Hmm.
memory.
Correct.
So
So, I was going through some of the reviews that have been published on your books, and obviously, wonderful things have been written, and few questions have also been asked to you as an author. I was just wondering that would you, as an author, say that this particular book was more of an admirational journey of the people, or you have also added analytics to it from your perspective?
So yes, analytics as well. It is also, you know, a chronology of events, tracing their way of looking at politics, and obviously bringing out the question that what exactly is the lacuna here in women leadership. See, it's amazing that how we do not realize that why are women as policymakers important, right? We are looking at it in a very black and white manner that women are not there, we need women there. But why? Why can't a man represent us, right? Women are also going to, in their constituencies, represent men. So I genuinely feel that I, as a person, stand for uh, It should not be an endless reservation. It should be there to give a foot in the door, right, to women. So my basic question, um, so I get this a lot, that are you a proponent of reservation, women reservation in politics? Yes, all for it right now, because it is not been organic, you know. The number of women in Nehru's cabinet and the number of women in Modi's cabinet, there should have been an increase. I would have thought that at least 50% would be there. Why are political parties giving this lip service, right? So to let's take an analogy. If my representative, my municipal councillor is a right-handed person, is he a good representative of a left-handed person? Is that even a criteria? No, it is not. But so what does so why is gender a criteria? Because I genuinely feel that what women bring to the table, the sensitivity in policy making, that men cannot bring to the table. So,
That's true.
so tell me something, that why I also feel that men should be brought onto the policy making table when it comes to women,
Absolutely.
right?
Their perspective matters.
Yes, exactly. My point is, like, so when we were releasing my book, and I contacted Congress MP Manish Tiwari, and he said that it's a wonderful book. He read it and he said that, but Nidhi, why are you drawing me in? So I said, because you got to be there. And he said, it's a book on women politics. I said, so, and your point being? So he says, yeah, I get it. I'll be there. So my entire thing has always been, I always give this example. It's a very small example, but it just shows what women bring to the table. There's enough has been written. There is enough empirical evidence as well that women who are head of panchayats, right? Those panchayats do very well. There are studies. The government has got them done. There are studies that these panchayats do very well in,
Significant difference.
yeah, in infant mortality, in maternal health
I'm
parameters.
guessing even in hygiene, etc.
Exactly. Everything, even as planners, right? So there is enough evidence on that. Now, a very small example, when I was researching the book, I was talking to Renuka Chaudhary, who was the first Women and Child Development Minister of India. Now, she said that when we were, it was a very small matter. Like, there was a bus service. I think she'd gone back to her constituency, and she was asking the women that we have to introduce a bus service. What time should the women, she asked the women, what time do you want the bus service? Do you want it, like, you know, some time of the day, right, when that bus will go to the town, and then it will come back, the same bus will come back to this village? What time? So the women thought, and they said that we want it to be around the time that probably at 7 or probably 6:37, because that's the time when children leave for school, and we would want the children to ferry
The bus.
be in the bus and come back in the same bus. So she said, okay. And so it should be around 7:30, 7:30. And when do you think? She says, 2, 3. She said that. Now she asked me, she says, Nidhi, guess what did the men say? What time should be the bus? Portia, what time?
10 o'clock?
In the morning.
Hmm.
So they said that we're okay what time the bus goes into the town, but we definitely want it at 10 or 11 p.m.
To return.
to return, because that's the time my theka closes.
Yeah, that's the time they probably drink and come back.
That's the time the theka closes, and the local theka closes at 10 p.m. and or whatever, 11 p.m. That's when we want. Now see the difference. The woman thought of the entire family. When my husband will go to work, when the children will go, And the men had the perspective, what I want to do, I need my drink. He's not bothered how the children come back from school or how they are going to school. It's I
Yeah.
want a safe transport to be back. That's what women bring to the table as policymakers.
Very macro and micro
Yeah, and
perspectives
it's a
throughout.
well-rounded
Yeah.
perspective. And also, like, another example, this is a personal example, and I have been told by my friends that I don't know why you give this example, but it's
Makes sense.
so it is like this really small example. I started covering Parliament in 2007, and I realized, so in the old Parliament House now, the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha have shifted to the new Parliament House. The old Parliament House was, like, as everybody knows, it's a circular building, and we used to, the press gallery was above the speaker,
Hmm.
right? So it was on the first floor above the speaker. Even now in the new parliament, we are on the first floor, but we're not above the speaker.
Hmm.
We sit around, like, above the members towards the, so it's like in a semicircular way. Even then, it was like that, but we used to be above the speaker. And I remember, so when I started covering and I needed to use the washroom, so when I would come out of the speaker, the press gallery, I would come out and there were only unisex loos. There wasn't a
No
women's,
separate
no,
rooms.
there was no women's loo, and there was no washroom then. And I remember I had to go the entire distance, come down to the ground floor, and the and really walk a very long distance to
Hmm.
find a women's washroom. So what most of the journalists started doing, a shortcut, that there used to be an MP's washroom, women MP's washroom, right below, and we would just request the security, can we just use this? And it was just a small, like,
Hmm.
a passageway. So we would just use that. But sometimes there would be VIP movement, Sometimes Sonia Gandhi would be coming out, some minister, so they would just say, there's VIP movement, please don't
Use
step
it,
this way.
yeah,
Yeah, the
today.
PM has come down, please don't use this. See, I did not. I mean, you would think in Parliament of India there would be a women's washroom on every floor. It's a huge complex,
Why not? It
right?
should
It's
be.
at least on every. How come I am in some small corner somewhere? So when Meera Kumar became the first woman speaker, we went to her and we finally got a women's washroom. She gave us a huge place which was clean, which had enough cubicles, which had a place to rest. But it took a woman speaker to understand, and she just made space within a few days of that request. So, how come planners don't think of
So it's all,
basic
it's both
facilities?
way. You make the request, you understand the problem. The person who's receiving the request also needs to understand,
Yes,
and only then things move forward. Else,
absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. So that's what women policymakers bring to the table. I've always felt that a woman's perspective will be a well-rounded perspective, and not because I'm a woman. Now, if you go to some place, how many? If you're traveling, I travel a lot for elections, and to cover elections, to cover different issues, we have stories. So we are encouraged to travel. Uh, Now tell me, how many men ask you before you venture out, do you want to use the washroom? Are you comfortable? Not many. Women will always
Limited.
bring that thing that, she'll be uncomfortable. Can we put her at ease? Not many men will ask you, do you want to use the washroom?
True.
They'll ask you for chai, coffee, but they'll not ask you if you want to, because it
Use
doesn't occur to
it
them.
doesn't strike them. That's probably brings back to how our society is molded and how we are brought up. And again, in different corners, different positive and negative stories. Negative more, I would say.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for bringing this on the table. Last quick question. Just wanted to ask, since it's been 3 years since this wonderful book has been in the market. How have some of your findings of this book shaped your thought, which may or may not have made you feel that I need to explore more about this, or maybe something new. Has this book led to new thoughts for you?
Absolutely. And, I always say that till you experience it, you don't realize it. It's like putting a part of you out in the world. It's like bringing forth a child. And it shapes you because the journey is very difficult. Um, it's difficult in the sense because you are putting a part of your professional journey as well as a personal journey out in the world for people to dissect and people to judge you with. It's not easy.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously, when I was promoting the book, it did shape me as an individual, made me calmer, more focused, and yes, there is always a second book. And I always feel now, when earlier people used to tell me that second book is the toughest because it's the passion of the first book, the enthusiasm that sees you through. By the second book, you know too much. So, and
That
there
is a
is,
very decent assessment of things, yes.
yeah, so you just know too much. There is something called too much knowledge in this world, okay? So you are just that much wiser and more skeptical. So if you see most authors, whenever you ask them, they always feel the second book is the toughest, third comes along. So third comes along, but the second book is truly genuinely trial by fire.
We wish you all the best.
Thank you.
That was Nidhi Sharma, author of She the Leader.